Good afternoon and most welcome to H795. We are closing in on the 800 pretty quick now. We are getting closer. Wow, what an excitement. And today is a subject that is most interesting. Thank you very much for the tip. And I hope I can do this subject justice today. I'll give it a try. Well, we are going to talk about mirrors today. What is a mirror? Well, we usually say it's a reflection. And in many languages, it's actually called reflection. But it could also be other stuff. Looking into the water also give a reflection. And mirrors have taken a great part in mythology, in stories, in history, also scientific development. The telescope was dependent on the development of mirrors. Today we're going to look at it a bit different. First, start with a story. Mirror, mirror upon the wall, who's the prettiest of them all? This is the evil queen standing in front of the mirror, wanting to look pretty. And what is not the best place to be than in front of the mirror? The mirror sucks up a portion of the light, and what it gives back is usually a slightly younger and less defined person. Less defined means also prettier. The less defined you are, the rounder you get. Look at a baby. There's barely a need for a baby to look into a mirror. It is soft already. But the softening effect of mirrors was upon a time much, much bigger. We don't know how old mirrors are. It's very hard to tell because you can always mirror yourself into water and nobody knows when that happened. But we found mirrors made of bronze, copper, even gold from ancient times. The Babylonians, the Sumerians, also in the Americas. The Incas and the Aztecs used different mirrors. And oddly enough, mirrors has also been used as a weapon. And how could that be? Well, by using really, really large mirrors, you can blind the enemy. You can put the sunlight into their eyes. And you can also focus the sunlight so to make it stronger. And also think about the modern development of the laser beam. The laser is also using mirrors to become. That's an important thing in the creation of mirror. We talk about today almost always as the mirror being our perfect twin. And I found loads of stories when I look through my memory today where I remember where the mirror image either stepped out of the mirror or the person stepped into a mirror version of reality. Little bit like Alice in Wonderland. You get a distorted world where everything is turned from left to right. And that goes to show that mirrors are a really important thing. And when we stand in front of the mirror, we usually think what we are looking at, that's ourselves. This is how we look to other people, and even to the final conclusion. What I see in the mirror is myself. But there are certain problems with this perception. One of the problems is, as I mentioned before, every mirror, at least all normal mirrors, they do cause a divergence of the light. It's going to be something different. in some way. It is not a perfect copy. Will you need a mirror you can hardly find, a very expensive mirror, to get a clear and good perception of what you look like? But there are greater problems. The couples Blakesley we took up earlier when we were in Jonsered. There must have been something in the vicinity 200, 300, somewhere there. And then we talked about that the body image, the idea of the body, is something we construct ourselves. And it has very little to do with what we see in the reflection. We also know, if we're going to further the argument and give some more fuel to the proposition that comes later, is that to different people you look different. You don't look the same. I'm not only talking about the fact that every eye is different. The whole seeing process is dependent on your balance, something we mentioned the other day. You will see differently according to how well developed is your balancing function. And this has a lot to do with what I showed on the whiteboard only 6 lectures ago, with the balancing system and the accelerative system called the crystal system, and also the inner ear. These 3 systems, and probably much more, do affect the image. And the image, we know, it's a construction that takes in senses, other senses, like feeling, hearing. Hearing makes images very different. So that's sort of an illusion that we've known for a while, that the perception are some sort of stable thing for other people. We look incredibly different. Another thing that is more pertinent to this specific subject, a confusion of the mirror image to be yourself, is actually something that affects the body map in a negative way. And the reason is that there is a time lapse. If you look into the mirror, you will not directly see yourself. It will be a time lapse because the light has to come into the mirror, and then you have to perceive it, you have to process it and all that. That will take time, whereas the body map is immediate. And the reason for the body map to be immediate, body map is what makes action possible. And that can't be a time lapse in the body action. And milliseconds and microseconds are incredibly important. Get 1 millisecond wrong and the action will be wrong as well. Our whole bodily system is a coordinating system, and it's also a synchronizing system. And it does matter quite a lot if you, for a millisecond, do not extend your back before you do something. That's very damaging, and that is something we know today is going to affect your back, and it will in the end cause harm to it. So that's the more pertinent reason that we should not, from a medical, biological, and also something I won't mention today, a quantum physical viewpoint, we should not confuse the reflection with our reality. This is what we are doing today, and something that added to this quite a lot is the recent development of photography. Something that's been around almost 200 years to this day. In the early 19th century, the daguerreotype was developed in France, and after a couple of decades you got proper photos. That's another way of confusing who you self are with an image in a photo. And of course, today with video machines, recordings, even the most simple mobile can today record, with the possible exception of my colleague's mobile, who purchased the most simple one. But those are quite unusual today. And on every and each mobile, we think that there are living people being there, actual people. So you see, it helps to get that image. And I think it's interesting, it was well established already before the Franco-Prussian War in France that photos were exact copies of reality. That was one of the reasons for the movement that was later to be termed Impressionists, who thought that photos were not good enough and it was like easy depiction of reality. They want to leave reality and everything they thought to be depictions of reality, and they abandoned completely the previous way of painting that was, you could call it realistic or photo-like, but none of those predicatives are actually correct, but you get the drift. You get the drift. It was a reaction to painting correctly what was in front of you. So it's not hard to see how strong this perception is. It even caused a whole painting wave, the Impressionists, and that led to other painting waves like the Cubists, the Surrealists and all that. Everything started with photos, but not really photos, but the idea that photos were depiction of reality. Isn't that interesting? Now you possibly get a very strong feeling for how big a force this is. And I will claim in this lecture that this has been going on for quite a long time, much longer than the early 19th century. I'd say this idea was well established already in a way in Greek period, but in a reversed way. That's the thing. I'm going to, in a reversed way. When I was doing the preparation to this lecture, I felt for a second, there was some hesitation that, oh no, how is this going to play out? I'm not sure about this at all, because I felt there was a genuine contradiction how the Greek felt about mirror image and how we feel about mirror image today. To cut it short, the Greek did not trust the mirror image. They thought exactly as I said here. It's a corruption of the proper one. And today we don't think that. So I thought it for half a second, but I continued to write, and by doing so, all doubt disappeared. Somewhere embodied, I know what the answer was to be, and that's the reversal. But let me now skip to the next subject, the Greek culture, and there look at the mirrors. We, by this time, had a lot of mirrors. They were well established. They were still rather expensive. It was not something for the common man, but you can be sure the common man had seen them and used them. If you were to stand in the market, I'm quite sure there would be at least one mirror for people to look at themselves when they bought some jewelry or maybe a piece of cloth, so they could see themselves vaguely how they look. You must remember at this time the mirrors also distorted colors a great deal, because they were made of bronze, and bronze has this natural color. It goes a little bit reddish, yellowish, orangey, but more or less. And you can, by a mirror, also see how jewelry will look at you. Will this necklace suit me? How do I look with this new haircut? and so on. Especially women, I can imagine they use mirrors a lot. There were loads of small mirrors found owned by better or well-off ladies in the Greek society. Socrates speaks in the Republic and says to Glaucon, "You could do it most quickly if you should choose to take a mirror and carry it about everywhere. You will speedily produce the sun and all other things in the sky. You can use a mirror and you can get the sky down to your hand. You can have a look-see." "Yes," Socrates said, "the appearance of them." The appearance. This is important. The appearance. You will get the appearance of them, but not the reality and the truth. Glaucus agrees with Socrates that the couches and the tables that they see and use are only poor imitations of the ideas of them. Socrates' proof is the sun and its reflection in the mirror. The sun that you see in the mirror is only an appearance. So we can see here this action, this functioning of the mirror, and in combination with people around it, and the use of the mirror at that time, something that had been going on for a long time, had started the Greek mind to think. I'd say this conclusion did not come in other cultures. There's a bit of a chance. We're ready to take that chance. We don't have any indication that the Egyptians thought similar. But it started in the mind of the Greek. And you know, the Greek are and were an inquisitive people. They wanted to know. Knowledge was something very, very important for them. Episteme. How do you know the truth? The truth of it, I would say. And that of it is very important. It's not only truth, the truth of it. From where does it stem? It's like a little seedling of what later came to be epistemology. The idea where from do we get the truth? Where did it stem from? The Greek started this, and this whole function with the mirror became a perception, a gestalt, if you like. A whole gestalt that encompassed every aspect of the Greek society. It took its reality from that. And gestalt is a little bit like a hologram. It contains different parts, but it makes up a whole picture that is immediate and direct, not like a mirror image at all. And this direct was that the mirror image was wrong. And that developed to become also what we see, what we feel, what we perceive, what we sense. That is also wrong. You see, a gestalt was developed, and this had its actuality, and it made things. It made things look less real. All of a sudden, it was not only the mirror image, it was also this image. It went to being the mirror reflection of the subject, and then we question this part, the subject part, and then everything got questioned. Those things are not episteme. They are just like the mirror image, vague representation or inaccurate representations, not exact. You can see how important the mirror is here, and I don't think it would be far out back to say this development of thinking would not have been possible without the mirror. And I'd say water is too far from the truth to even start this thinking. It's too obvious it's not pure reflection. But possibly, and most likely, half of the population in Athens thought it was a true depiction. Philosophers know better. You see, the inquisitive nature led them to a conclusion that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And then you have a gestalt, and then you start looking for the truth of everything. And it's not in this reality, not in sinnevärlden, the world or the realm of perception. This became firmly established during the years, the decades, the centuries and the millennia, and it stuck. It stuck. And you can condense the idea and to say it was almost, the Gestalt said, was a better reality somewhere else. That's a condensation. Something truer in an epistemological way, somewhere else. A greater truth was out there. So then you have starting to have a divide once more. Sorry to repeat this, but I think it's very good. It's a little bit like brushing your teeth morning and night. It starts with a divide. You have reality and you have the appearance. Let's prioritize. We all know how to do it. Already done it 5 times. Prioritize. There is a grander reality. Now we cut reality into half. We are starting to prioritizing, and we will marginalize. We marginalize the mirror image, and that goes over to appearance as such, and appearance is what we see. And while you have this divide, it's easier to understand the firm establishment of objects and subjects later, because slowly Platonism changed its shape. It's a shapeshifter because it's dependent on this division, a human-made division. This is from human mind. And humans have a tendency during time to reverse. This is a very human thing. We all know it, and some things reverse. So reality, maybe in the 15th century, 16th century, we had this divide between the empiricists and the idealists. It's a division that is akin to this. It's similar. You could say in the beginning the idealists were on the defense, they were losing. The empiricists, they gained force, and they start saying this true reality, something that we already established not to be appearance. That could actually be not the world of ideas, but what as we in this newborn technological science has started to understand. Because it has many similarities to the realm of ideas. It seems to be more objective, gives the same result for everyone. It doesn't seem to change. It's changeless. So in this divide between appearance and reality, the divide persists, but there is another working division outside in the world. It seems that the objects are taking the place of what former was things in the realm of ideas. And by the early 17th century, that's starting to get really established as a counter-movement to idealism. This is usually how these things goes. And more, it could be this, they didn't say that, but this is the words I put in their thinking. The world of ideas is not so far away. Maybe it's the things we have around us, the objects. Because technology can sort of construct those things that was not possible for Plato, Socrates and Aristotle. They can give this clear thinking. They can do things that is equal all over the world at any time, independent on who you are, sort of independent of a mirror that sort of corrupts. So all of a sudden we have this reversal. It's the objects that are true, and appearances and ideas seem to be less true. So there is a battle still going on between idealism and empiricism, but somehow idealism seems to be losing this battle. We go more further and further to the ideas that we have the perfect objects. When we start looking for that, we actually take the banner of Plato. We continue his mission. We go further and further to look for perfection. Where can we find it? Well, I think it was a grand step for the banner of Plato, what Newton did in the late 17th century. Firm establishment of a truth and appearance out there, so to speak, according to Newton. Objects became the truth. And this was sharpened and sharpened. Somewhere people were thinking we should go into the reals, the most real of the most real to the most real, and somewhere on the line we discover the atom. Atom exactly the same everywhere, not dependent on any reflection or not even the subject. It was always out there, the atoms. Now finally we found the absolute ideal picture of the world. And are they that? Yes, in a way the atoms have this, because they build up everything, and they do it by the properties of being absolutely the same and true. They are perfection, absolute perfection. They don't have any scratches. The idea of the atom was the same as the atom. So you could say that the atoms were ideas in the Platonic sense, or in this feeling of the Gestalt. They were true reflections, something you can't have here in reality. They were the truth. And they went both ways, took away ideas. And they also, in the end, I think still at Newton's time, perception was seen as something important, became important once more. Because the early empiricists, they used perception. Look at stars, that's how Copernicus found his things out. This is also what was used in the early development of technology. But as time went, we could put our perceptions aside more and more. We didn't need them because instruments and calculus, the calculus that Descartes depicted, made, constructed, became more and more important, and they did all these tricks. And they led us, they opened the fantastic, majestic doors to that realm that Plato never could reach, to his dismay. And finally we were there. We had the absolute perfection of ideas, the atoms. And since we started more and more to go to the reality side, we get once more back to the mirror, once more back to the idea that the object is the true, and a photo and a mirror will depict that. And that once more became the truth. Because you see the object, and I myself is actually constructed of objects. And in the mirror I could see, indirectly at least, these fantastic objects. So I became, in a really weird sense, an object, objectivized. I was consisting of atoms, molecules, chemical substances, organic substances. This whole idea became more and more foundational. And once more, I'm now getting back into the alley I started. Once more we go back, go front in time, we come to the Impressionists. And by that time the gestalt in the society, in every vein of the society, was realities out there. That was also the idea of the famous French naturalist D'Holbach. Realities out there is just for us to perceive. And once it got further and further, we today actually think that the reflections are true. That's the truth. And when we hear, I mentioned this before, I mentioned to Kalle yesterday, but I mentioned that before in lectures a couple of years ago. And what people say when they hear that mirror is not a true reflection, they just brush their shoulders, but well, it's to 95% true. So we are accepting that 5%, it doesn't really matter. Well, the two objections there. Actually, the mirror distorts everything. It's not only 5%. It's because of the time lapse and the angles. But it's not only that. The body image, the body map, is the true picture of reality. That's the truth, and we know that because that's what constructs reality. So it's problematic. But we know today that so many people think reality is what you see in the photos, and this has started to take a great, tremendous force today. Photos are reality, and just the imagination they could be false, that caused a turmoil during the 20s. Nobody could at that time think that those photos, for instance, when Lenin was standing next to Stalin and for some reason there was an empty space next to him. It was just Lenin and Stalin, nobody else. And then somebody found out they'd taken away Trotsky. He was no longer wanted. He was taken from photo and thereby from the realm of ideas, from reality. And this came as a shock to people, especially in the Western world. And I think this is ludicrous because photos are very far from reality. They're extraordinary far from reality. But it was an immense trust on photos. Immense trust. And of course this idea also stirred an idea that photos are incredibly important. And then came television, we had cinematic depiction. Those are reality. And just, which I think is really funny, the enormous amount of mockumentaries that we can find today. It's like we create documentaries that's been going on for at least 100 years now. And when people found out you can make a fake documentary, that become popular too. And those are amazing, of course. And it's like looking into an illusion. I can see the documentary and I can, how can this not be true? How can those people be actors? And it doesn't matter to me, in my gestalt. Even if I see in the beginning lines, this is a mockumentary, nothing is true here. Still the impression is so strong. I started to laugh, that's impossible. It's almost like seeing an elephant flying or something like that. You see, this is the reason photos, images, television has such a great affliction. It's a great affection, influence. It could stir in either direction because they are not reality. Still not reality. It was made by a division and it maintains a division. It's only true in that way. It's the opposite of what's not true. It's dependent. Truth shouldn't be dependent in that way. It makes it problematic. And this finally, after all these years, it gives me the final clue. I had it on the hunch many years, been thinking must be something in that vicinity, must be somewhere there. But it's this really weird perception the first time I went to Japan. And the second day I was tired from the trip still. I sat down in the sofa and I looked some television. And I sat between the children, one was 14, the other was 15. And it was 6 o'clock in the afternoon and it was children's television. And what I saw that put a scar into my memory that lasted through nightmares, and still to this day it gives me shrivel. It was a complete disaster of bloodshed, killing, murder and everything. So far from what I was used to. I was used to Astrid Lindgren, Mumintroll, those nice depictions. Here it was just blood. After half an hour I felt sick and I just asked them to turn the television off. They had no idea what I was talking about. And I asked the mother, why on earth do you put those children to look at these horrendous things? And the first thing she said, well, they never harmed them. They've been seeing that since they were 10 years old or 9. It shocked me even more. And then she said, what are you talking about? What she said in Japanese was, this is a box. It's light coming out of the box. What are you so upset of? And I never understood it until now. It is just a box. In a way, the reflection is just a reflection. Photos are photos, nothing more. They can give clues to reality. They can be used in criminal things. Sherlock Holmes would probably use them. But do not ever confuse them with reality. And that's a tendency that lingers on all to this day. We in the West have this remarkable tendency to confuse those things with reality. And I'd say symbols is another thing that really is perceived by our Westerners to be completely real. Like the swastika. Swastika you could see, at that time I was in Japan, you could see it everywhere. was a decoration. And when I said that means a lot, how can it mean anything? Doesn't mean anything to me. The TV doesn't produce reality. It's not a reality box. As a little extent as the box that was produced in Florence by Brunelleschi depicts the truth. The truth doesn't come from a very, very small box. Reality is incredibly much bigger than the box. So you see, it's a reversed way of looking at reality. It was a reversal going on, but this is always happening with this division, because it's codependent on the thing you want to marginalize. Always, always. It's a dependency. And all dependencies are parasitic. In the end, the thing you are dependent on, if you take a credit card, you use it little by little. In the end, the credit company will own your body and soul. This is what happens with dependency. There is a price to be paid. If you make a division, it doesn't come without the cost. You can win a point when you stand in the Agora in front of the Parthenon and speak to all the nice gentlemen around you. And you win the argument, you're really happy, and you get praised by everyone. But there is a price to pay for that one argument. You have to pay it more than anyone else. Also the others. There's a price. It doesn't come cheap. And I think our dependency on pictures or our imagined ideas of the reality of photos, video images, mirror reflections have caused so much horrors in the Western Hemisphere. Body image, for instance, I won't go into those subjects, but you can imagine yourself, anorexia, bulimia, whatever you have. It's all the idea that your image is the true reality of yourself. And how can you be happy if you have a little overweight or you're too skinny, whatever you are, not pumped enough? That's caused by this, I'd say. But I think I end here. I think it was incredibly good tip, and I really liked the thing, and it helped me also to get the last clue into the mystery that happened that late afternoon, 1995, in a little house in Edogaraku in the outskirts of Tokyo. I say thank you very much, and I bid you a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.